What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the career of actor Colin Farrell. There's been a few times where one movie really jumpstarts an acting career. I find in most cases it's a gradual progression, but in the case of one Colin Farrell, it's the Joel Schumacher movie Tigerland in 2000, where he plays a Vietnam vet named Roland Boz. And I think the reason he stands out is because the rest of that movie is a traditional war film, and it feels like something you've seen before. Farrell is the thing that is most unique about it. It's the thing that gave him an early chance at superstardom. And early on after that, things were going well for Colin Farrell. In 2002, he was being paired with two giant movie stars, Bruce Willis in the war film Heart's War, and Tom Cruise in Steven Spielberg's Minority Report. He also re-teamed with Joel Schumacher on the thriller Phone Booth, which is a movie I really like. Of that trio of movies, the one that holds up the best is clearly Steven Spielberg's Minority Report. Yes, it is Tom Cruise's movie, but Colin Farrell makes a great foil. One might say, looking back at his career, there should have been more roles like that for Colin Farrell early on, where he's a supporting actor in a very good movie. Because in 2003, there was two leading roles in The Recruit that paired him with Al Pacino, and SWAT with Samuel L. Jackson, and that year he also played Bullseye in Daredevil with Ben Affleck. Now looking back at that movie in particular, I now see he's giving a ridiculously over-the-top performance, but at the time I really liked the movie and still can watch it and enjoy it for the most part. When it comes to those movies, they do have their defenders. The breaking point for Colin Farrell's career struggles is without a doubt 2004's Alexander from writer-director Oliver Stone, and it seems like most of the devastation came from the fact that Farrell himself viewed this movie as something special to be a part of, telling Scott Feinberg of The Hollywood Reporter on his Awards Chatter podcast, quote, "The script was extraordinary. It was so full of passion. It was so full of pathology from every character. They were all so emotionally and psychologically complex. Obviously, it was full of history. There was incredible battle scenes that were written. There were family dynamics that were kind of twisted, but wonderful and intriguing. Oliver wrote an extraordinary script, and I loved it." End quote. Last thing on the movie Alexander, I did watch it for the first time recently, and it's a bit of a mess. I think the problem is the structure of the movie is all over the place. Its ambition is there, but the execution is lacking. And don't even get me started on Angelina Jolie playing Colin Farrell's mother. Next for Farrell was The New World with Terrence Malick and the polarizing Miami Vice from Michael Mann playing Sonny Crockett. It's a movie I really like. It's my opinion that the people who love this movie the most are people whose favorite all-time director is Michael Mann. Farrell himself has conflicting feelings on the movie, telling Josh Horowitz on the podcast Happy, Sad, Confused, quote, "People have come back and found it and thought it wasn't as bad as maybe they initially reacted to it. But there was a certain life that I shared with Jamie, which is a very grandiose way of saying we got on well and we had a laugh off camera. And while I never thought it should have been a buddy comedy, and I thought it should have, and it did try to honor in a contemporary way the tone of the original series, I thought there could have been a little bit more light between the two of us." End quote. It's very easy in hindsight to be judgmental of this time in Colin Farrell's career because the movies did not hit well with audiences and critics alike, but the choices were valid. Making movies with Oliver Stone and Michael Mann were good ideas, because the reality is, if those movies were hits in a major way, Farrell would have been solidified as a major actor far sooner. I also look at these early failures that's what you want to call them. And don't blame Colin Farrell. Like, he's not the problem with these movies. The problem with Alexander isn't the fact that Colin Farrell is playing the leading part. It's the fact that the movie isn't very good. And I'll defend Miami Vice by saying that Colin Farrell, without a doubt, gives the best performance in that movie. That early era of Colin Farrell is interesting to talk about for sure, but his renaissance and resurgence is what I'm most interested in talking about on this podcast. And there are obvious movies to talk about from his comeback, and we'll get to those movies. But two that I think about a lot that made me take him seriously as an actor are 2011's Horrible Bosses, playing Bobby, the spoiled boss of Jason Sudeikis' Kurt. I really like this movie, and I think Colin Farrell gives the best performance in it. It's completely transformative and the best comedic turn of his career. The other film being 2013's Saving Mr. Banks, where Farrell plays Travers Robert Goff, who was the father of P.L. Travers, who wrote the Mary Poppins books. He's the inspiration for the Mr. Banks character. Watch this movie and tell me it doesn't deepen your relationship to the movie Mary Poppins. It's the most underrated movie of the career of Colin Farrell. And there's not a lot that these two movies and these two performances have in common, but the main thing being Colin Farrell is not being asked to be the lead of these two movies. He's not the lead of Horrible Bosses, and he's not the lead of Saving Mr. Banks. He is just a crucial scene-stealing part of those movies. He wasn't being asked to carry these movies. He wasn't being asked to be the entire selling point of the movies. Hollywood clearly tried to turn this guy into a conventional leading man, and he's just not that. He's not the type of movie star that relies on charm. He's not playing the same guy over and over again. He needs to have great parts. He needs to be in great movies with great scripts, and I don't mean that as a diss, because when you give him a great part, he does it better than almost anyone else. The ultimate compliment I'm going to pay Colin Farrell on this podcast is, instead of turning into a major movie star, he turned into a great actor. Most would define this era of Colin Farrell by the work he's done with two outstanding directors, Martin McDonagh and Yorgos Lanthimos. For McDonagh, Farrell has starred in the movies In Bruges, the film that many consider to be Farrell's best. It's the movie that highlights what a special pair him and Brendan Gleeson are. More on them in a minute. I also think it showcases what's great about Colin Farrell is he's at his best when he's not playing someone who is uber likable. He somehow gets you to empathize with this hitman character. 2012's Seven Psychopaths is a movie that has three of my all-time favorites in it: Colin Farrell, Sam Rockwell, and Woody Harrelson. It is the underrated film of writer-director Martin McDonagh's career. And 2022's The Banshees of Inisherin, where Farrell plays Parekh, who is devastated by the fact that his best friend no longer wishes to speak to him. For the role, Farrell got his first ever Oscar nomination. For Lanthimos, Farrell has starred in 2015's The Lobster, an odd love story with Rachel Weisz, The Less You Know Going In the Better, and 2017's The Killing of a Sacred Deer, an off-putting movie that is scary. I really do enjoy almost all of the movies Farrell has made during the second act of his film career. The two that I want to focus on for a moment are Sofia Coppola's The Beguiled from 2017. This is the kind of movie I was talking about earlier. It's a movie where Colin Farrell is given a pivotal role but doesn't have to carry the entire thing. He's sharing the screen with the likes of Nicole Kidman, Kirsten Dunst, and Elle Fanning. And the other is 2016's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, a movie I really like. Farrell plays Percival Graves, who is not who he says he is. I've said this before, he should have been the villain in the sequel films. Just change his appearance and keep the same actor because he's brilliant in that movie. That's one of the things that I love about where Colin Farrell is at as an actor. He's not great in one kind of movie. It's not like he gave up being in the bigger movies like Daredevil and Alexander and now only makes smaller movies. No, he's great in smaller films and he's great in big studio films as well. He can play the leading role or he could be the supporting character that only has about 30 to 40 minutes of screen time. He can play any kind of character. As a society, we so quickly come to judgment of what an actor is going to be throughout his entire career. We did not think that this guy was going to develop and grow into the actor that he is today. For a long time, it felt like Colin Farrell had a quiet comeback, that he had gained the respect of film critics and was now respected for his work as an actor, but the comeback became noisy and mainstream in 2022 with 4 undeniable performances in Kogonada's After Yang, Matt Reeves' The Batman, Ron Howard's 13 Lives, and the already discussed The Banshees of Inisherin from Martin McDonagh. By that time, I was already fully on board with Colin Farrell as an actor. I just loved the fact that he was getting worldwide recognition, that Oscar nomination, box office success as well. I also like the fact that it came from a surprising place, like an Oscar nomination for The Banshees of Inisherin. Yes, everybody had loved his work with Martin McDonagh up until that point, but after he didn't get an Oscar nomination for In Bruges, it seemed rather unlikely that he would get one for this movie, and then that movie really hit critics in a big way. The other movie from that year that I really want to talk about for a minute is The Batman, because that feels like a redemption story also, because of what happened with Daredevil, where he played a villain in a movie that didn't work, and most people don't care for him in that. Playing the Penguin had the opposite effect. He received universal acclaim, has played the character again on television. It's interesting seeing actors take on a second comic book character. Chris Evans did it with Captain America, Ryan Reynolds did it with Deadpool, and Farrell with the Penguin to great success. I have to imagine that over the years, Colin Farrell had a lot of opportunities to be in other comic book movies, but waited for the exact right one to come in that was made by a great director in Matt Reeves. I also think he just chose the right kind of character to play. Like, he's probably not at that age where he should be playing a superhero. He should play a villain. Playing the Penguin was the right choice. He's part of the best scenes of that movie. With where we are at in modern times when it comes to movies, Colin Farrell has the ideal acting career in that he's going to be playing the Penguin in future Batman movies. He's got that going for him. He also makes other big studio movies. I watched Dumbo. I thought it was okay. And in the same breath, he's also a sought-after actor by many of the best directors working today. Yes, I want to see him re-team with the likes of Martin McDonagh and Yorgos Lanthimos. Do that immediately. But I also want to see him work with other great directors. Like, I think it would be amazing to see Colin Farrell in a film directed by Christopher Nolan or Paul Thomas Anderson for that matter. The Oscar nomination happened and it was great, but I think we're in the realm of the possibility of him winning an Oscar in the next 5 years. It should happen, and I think it's going to happen because he's going to give another great performance. Let's look at the movies that Colin Farrell has coming up in September. He has a big, bold, beautiful journey re-teaming with director Kogonada, and for the first time co-starring with Margot Robbie. And in October on Netflix, he has the movie Ballad of a Small Player, directed by Conclave director Edward Berger, co-starring Tilda Swinton. So we could be headed towards another big film year for Colin Farrell in 2025. He's already been nominated this year for an Emmy for The Penguin, and that's really one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to talk about his career on this podcast, because he's gone through it all. He's gone through the failures of finding himself as an actor, and now he's viewed as one of the best actors in the world. I don't know how many actors who could have bounced back from the failure of Alexander the way that Colin Farrell has. I mean, so many would have just gone away after that kind of rejection, but he just kept giving great performance after great performance until you had to admit to yourself you're watching a great actor. Like, that's what happened with Colin Farrell. What's interesting is a career can be made by one movie. Like, Tigerland gave Colin Farrell the opportunity to attempt to become a major movie star, but the comeback is more quiet. Like, the comeback has to be multiple movies in a row. It was the same for Matthew McConaughey. It was the same for Ben Affleck. Like, one good movie doesn't change people's perception, but an incredible run of movies puts you back on the map. Another thing that I do believe is worth talking about, that his status as a celebrity did have an impact, and I believe a negative one, on the early part of his career. Like, I think people were interested in Colin Farrell as a personality when he was making movies like Daredevil. So at such a young age, not only was he dealing with the fact that he was being the lead of these giant movies, but he was also dealing with newfound fame. This to me is how good of an actor Colin Farrell has become. For most of my favorites, I can tell you which of their performances I think is the very best. I cannot with Colin Farrell. There are days where I don't know which one is my favorite, and usually my favorite is the one I just watched. Like, I don't think we are talking about an actor, when all's said and done, will be remembered for one singular movie or performance. This is an entire career that he's been on. It's a terrific one at that. Something that I do find really interesting about Colin Farrell is he is a constant presence in movies. Like, he's not one of these actors who made a lot of movies early on in his career and is now quieting down. Like, this is a guy who has a movie almost every year, or at least every 2 years. Like, he doesn't have those long gaps like Leonardo DiCaprio went 5 years between making The Revenant and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Or he's not Daniel Day-Lewis, who gives a great performance and then goes away for a long time. Like, Colin Farrell is always there, and maybe that's one of the reasons why it took so long for people to appreciate him as an actor and movie star, because he's always there. Like what I was saying earlier, critics were back on board with Colin Farrell as an actor after In Bruges. Many of them thought that he should have been nominated for and possibly won the Oscar for Best Leading Actor. But for mainstream audiences, it didn't feel like the comeback connected until the year of 2022 with the likes of Banshees of Inisherin and The Batman. That was when it was like, wow, we are all on board with Colin Farrell once again. We as moviegoers just never seem to learn the lesson of we should give these actors time to grow before we take a stance on what they are and what they are going to be as actors. I'm not joking. I never thought that much about the name Colin Farrell for a very long time. I only knew him as the guy who was Bullseye in Daredevil. I thought it was a cartoony type of performance. I never thought much about him, didn't think of him as an actor, and then I watched Horrible Bosses and I was like, who is that guy? And then when I was told, oh, that's Colin Farrell, my mind was blown and my opinion on him changed immediately. My point is, you gotta give an actor more than 10 total movies before you come to a verdict. Where we are right now with Colin Farrell is he's in that sweet spot. He's a well-respected actor. He's an Oscar nominee, an Emmy nominee. He's making the right choices. He doesn't have much to prove. It feels like he's just going to continue to work with great directors and try to do interesting movies. They're not all going to hit in a major way. Not every year is going to be 2022 for Colin Farrell. But I don't see his good fortune changing anytime soon, because he is, in my opinion, the most consistent actor working today. And that doesn't mean he always hits big. I mean, there have been recent failures. Artemis Fowl, Voyagers. Those movies don't work, and most of you have never heard of those films. But he bounces back from those failures way quicker than he did from movies like Alexander or Miami Vice, because the next movie he makes is usually really good to great. What I think is wild about Colin Farrell is he's become so consistent as an actor that there are young people out there who don't even know about the perceived early failures of his career. They're not out here remembering what happened with Alexander or Daredevil or Miami Vice. They only know the good times because the good times have been here for a while. I mean, since 2008, no actor has been as good as Farrell. You can call that an opinion all you want, but look at his resume. Watch the movie, watch the performances, and you'll come to the exact same conclusion. I do feel a connection with him as an actor because he's been as famous for as long as I've been watching movies. I've seen his entire career. I've seen most of his movies. I have strong opinions, as you can tell, about him as an actor. And I will always remember the year of 2022 in movies as the year of Colin Farrell. And in my eyes, he doesn't need to give another great performance for the rest of his career. I just know there are a lot more on the way. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.